Morning, everyone, and welcome to the Post Falls Urban Renewal Commission meeting. It is Thursday, October 21st, 2021, and I'd like at this time for Director Fountain to call the order, please.
Clemenson.
Here.
Coles.
Here.
Davis. Here. Baltzell.
Here.
Crosby.
Here.
Commissioner Fleshman has not arrived yet, and Commissioner Carstensen has an excused absence this morning.
Okay, very good. Okay, thank you. We do call a meeting to order. We've had our roll call. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Crosby?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for joining us this morning. We've got a pretty full agenda, so we'll work right through it. But the very first thing I want to do is take just a moment to introduce to you the newest member of our administrative staff for Urban Renewal here in Post Falls. He was selected to fill the role when Diane Fountain, our current executive director, retires in early January. He will move into that role, but he's currently training day to day with her and doing a great job. His name is Joseph Johns. Some of you may know him. He started out as a teacher and then ended up going to work for Kootenai County in the assessor's office and was employed there for a long time and did a great job. In his final position with him that he just recently left was as chief deputy of the Kootenai County assessor's office. So we welcome him on board, and he'll be officially in that role come the early part of January. So welcome aboard, and now you all know if you didn't know before. Okay, let's move on with the agenda and go to conflict disclosure. Do any of the commissioners here today have any conflicts with anything on the agenda this morning? No? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to the consent calendar.
Thank you. Item A on the consent calendar is the commission meeting minutes of September 16th. Item B is the payables for the month totaling $8,532.96. Item C is the bank activity report, which shows total in all funds of $3,455,340.25 and accrued interest for the month of $220.69. Item D is the financial reports as of September 30th, which includes the fourth quarter actual to budget amounts. Your approval of the consent calendar will authorize a transfer of $8,532.96 to the First Interstate checking account for the monthly payables and $220.69 accrued interest to the general fund. And I would answer any questions.
Any questions or concerns regarding that report?
No.
Okay, if not,
Move to approve the consent
entertain
calendar.
a motion to approve. Okay.
Second.
Good.
Seconded.
Second. Okay. Any further discussion or questions? If not, roll call vote, please.
Clemenson.
Aye.
Coles.
Aye.
Davis. Aye. Baltzell.
Aye.
Crosby.
Aye.
And Fleshman. Aye. Thank you.
It's approved. Okay, committee updates, finance and policy. Commissioner Crosby is not here. Is there someone that can speak to
Commissioner
that?
Crosby is right here.
Oh, excuse me.
I'm totally transparent.
Sorry.
Finance Committee reviewed the financials for the month of September, which we just approved. We also reviewed the revised projections with regard to the payoff of the overpass loan and our further increments in the East Post Falls District, and we will be having a meeting in early November to discuss those and come back to the commission with a recommendation as to how to pay those obligations off in a faster fashion. We have done some analysis and feel like we can save the taxpayers some interest money by paying off the obligation on the bonds to Washington Trust earlier than we had originally projected. So that's where we are.
Okay, excellent. Any comments or questions on the finance report? Okay. Moving into the district review.
I
Commissioner
don't have
Coles?
anything this morning, but I think we should probably schedule a review for Joe's benefit before Diane escapes.
I agree. That would be good. Probably next month in November sometime. Sounds good. Perfect. Okay, communications, property, and personnel. Commissioner Carstensen is absent. Is there anyone that has anything to say on that behalf? I don't think we have anything new. We've been pretty active the last couple months with personnel issues, but they're all resolved and moving forward. So we'll move on with the agenda. And this next part is called citizen comments. This section of the agenda is reserved for citizens wishing to address the commission regarding an agency-related issue. Comments related to future public hearings should be held for that public hearing. Persons wishing to speak will have 5 minutes. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to ask questions or give us information? No, it doesn't look like it. Okay, moving forward. Unfinished business, downtown URD presentation and update by AA Construction on Millworx. Diane, you want to introduce the speaker?
Certainly. Brad Marshall from JUB is here, along with Ryan Ruffcorn and Bill Lawson from A&A Construction, that they will present the Millworx development.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Again, Brad Marshall with JUB Engineers. Again, it's a pleasure to represent A&A Construction, and with me today again is Bill Lawson, the owner of A&A, and Ryan Ruffcorn, the project manager for the mill site redo. Built a little PowerPoint, nothing fancy, but it kind of tells us the story. So we have a screen there and a screen there. I'll kind of walk through it. I'm going to cover a couple things that I covered previously. I was here before about a year and a half, maybe a year ago. So bear with me if I touch on things. It's just kind of a refresher. But A&A Construction is based out of Spokane. They've been developing in the Northwest for, what, 30 years? I don't want to... throughout from Anchorage all the way down to Northern California, but primarily the Spokane area. They've developed here in Post Falls. They did the Falls Apartments with Bob Templin years ago. So they purchased the mill site a couple years ago and have taken down portions of that in phases over time and developed some of the garden apartments that are east of Bay Street that are in existence today. Kind of a little background. This is kind of a conceptual site plan. Some of it's very detailed. The site extends from those existing garden apartments near Bay Street all the way over to what's called Post Street, which is west of the future extension of Idaho Street. And then if you kind of think where 4th Avenue is, just south of the fire station, the site is on the north side of 4th Avenue, all the way to the interstate, just east of the existing fire station. And the site extends to the rail spur to the south and or the Centennial Trail. All encompassing, it's about 50 acres, which is, of course, the former Idaho Veneer site. The Malloy family has worked with the A&A to convey that property over. And on a more specific note, Pat Malloy, one of the brothers, still is on call and available, and he knows that site very well and is working with A&A on a daily basis to make that transfer and redevelop the property. Kind of overview, on the northeast corner of 4th and Idaho, this is kind of adjacent to that fire station. We have a subdivision that's in the works. It's called the North Mill 1 subdivision. And that is a property that's zoned commercial. When we see the typical commercial uses in that property, we have pending site civil plans in front of the city right now and hope to have plan approval here shortly and final that plat, begin work on that. So we've got multiple users lined up in that area. To the south of the 4th Avenue, to the east of the extension of Idaho Street, that's that kind of a green area, that kind of green. That's what's called the Millworx. This is a mix of apartments, high-end apartments, and townhomes and or condominiums. These are private ownerships units. And we have site civil plans and building plans in the city and are anxiously awaiting approvals and permits to move forward. We've got subcontractors and contractors lined up to do the work. And then to the east of the to the west of the extension of Idaho is future phases of development of the project. And then we see the extension of Idaho Street kind of coming in between. You've heard the story before where you kind of need to build the rooftops first and then the retail components come in later. So Lynn, I see you giggling over there.
You've heard it ad nauseum, Brad.
That's kind of an overview. I'll go to the next slide. This is a very real rendering of the townhome units, condominium units that we built on the south side of 4th Avenue. This is a high-end unit, very attractive, aesthetically pleasing unit that will be condominiumized, so they will be owned. They are not a rental unit. And they'll have frontage on 4th Avenue, which we're reconstructing with frontage improvements, the wide sidewalks and so forth, that we work extensively with the city engineering staff to develop a nice cross-section. What's really neat about this site is there's a natural slope to the south, and you have tremendous views actually to the south toward the mountains across the river. And then ideally you can jump out at the south end of the site to the Centennial Trail and to Black Bay Park, and then go east to the other parks as well. And then all of which is walking distance to services. So pretty exciting. That's again a townhome unit. There's 3 different types of townhome units in the Millworx that we are anxiously awaiting plan approval on. This is another mid-range unit, again, 2-story units, some of which have detached garages, some of which have garages built within the unit. Again, great views to the south, high-end units, nice-looking units, very good, aesthetically pleasing. This is another unit type. Again, there's 3 product types in there. Again, south-facing, great views, and so forth. This is an apartment structure that will be retained by A&A Construction. There's 2 apartment structures within the first phases of the Millworx. Again, we have plans in, anxiously awaiting permits for those. So once those permits are issued, there'll be a lot of structures going up, I guess you could say, vertically. You may recognize a little bit of this building. This is looking down 4th Avenue, easterly. This is an existing structure. It's an old part of the mill site. It's a metal building. Structurally, it's in good shape. We're working on a plan to repurpose that building into a potential brewery, and with a potential, we have some interested tenants in that. So we're excited about that. Open air feeling. Maybe we ought to rename this area the Brewery District. We've got several breweries down there. But we're excited about repurposing that. There's also a big structure down there that we've all probably seen for years. It's called the Hog Tower. That's what held it. We're retaining that. We're gonna put up lighting on it, flag it. That's our landmark. That's our iconic landmark that you can see from the interstate, see from Idaho, see from Celtice. So that's the draw. This is a rendering that we truly hope comes to fruition. It's likely to happen. This is the northeast corner of 4th Avenue and Idaho, just south of the fire station. And right now we call it the Bookstore. It's really a bookstore, bistro, coffee house, restaurant structure. 2-story, a landmark of a building, pretty iconic. This is the real deal. So we're anxiously awaiting to get a plat recorded, to create the lot, to convey the lot, so they can pull a building permit. So that's a pretty exciting use of the property. Again, relationship, this is just south of that fire station, adjacent to the fire station. So lots going on. I want to talk a little bit about the extension of Idaho Street. So today, Idaho Street comes down to 4th Avenue and it stops. There's kind of an old right-of-way that kind of meanders through the site and pops through to 3rd Street. In the urban renewal plan, the Post Falls Transportation Master Plans, I think there's another plan and a plan and a plan that speaks of the extension of Idaho, again, from 4th down to 3rd. And what that does is it creates a great circulation network for the downtown area. It certainly benefits A&A's project because it opens up the site, creates frontage, but it benefits holistically the whole area in terms of circulation and so forth. This is what we envision of Idaho Street is what you see in Riverstone or Kendall Yards, if you've been to Kendall Yards in Spokane. It's first floor retail and second, third floor residential, whether or not it's condominiums or apartments, but wide sidewalks, dining opportunities on the sidewalks, both in front of the structure and in back of the structures, the front, kind of a new main street down there. Again, we've got to build the rooftops on the east and west sides of that Idaho Street, but this is a component there that we're moving forward with. So it involves the design and construction of a roundabout at the intersection of 4th and Idaho, punching through Idaho all the way to 3rd. And of course, that first floor retail, second, third floor residential. This is an illustration from the city of Post Falls against a plan view of what that might look like. So there's a lot of construction, a lot of widening, of course, some building demolition that's going on right now. Kind of bear with me, I'm looking at my notes. This is kind of plan view of what that roundabout may look like. We're in the very early stages of starting to scope out that project, the design of that project, trying to assemble some costs and move forward with that design and ultimate construction.
Brad, is that roundabout, is that 4th and Idaho Street?
Yeah,
That's
4th and Idaho.
Okay. And Idaho Street would be the
We're running
left, right?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. Kind of backing up is when A&A was purchasing this property, tracking it, they were following the urban renewal plan. There's no doubt. This site's also in an opportunity zone as well, so there's some incentives, to make this project work, because quite frankly, there's some risks. When you buy an old mill site, there's a lot of risk. It's the unknown of the building demolition, what you're dealing with there. There's the unknown of the soils. And they've certainly ran into their challenges on both ends. We've done early grading permits and done the early grading, and we ran into a lot of material. On the north side, we're kind of digging a hole to China right now, pulling up the old material, reclaiming that, putting some back, and then hauling it and exchanging new structural fill material. So there's a lot of material being moved out of there. On the south side of the site, south of 4th Avenue, like all the prior mill sites, you run into the wood debris, the chips, the sawdust. The big unknown is how deep it is and where it's at. They didn't technically log and keep a good record of that on all these mill sites. So it's a big risk. When you drive down 4th Avenue, you see the big pile there. That's all kind of remnant debris that was graded off the site, stockpiled. It's now being processed. You're kind of sifting through it. Well, what can we keep? What do we got to get rid of? When we get rid of it, what's it cost? And where do you put it? It's a big load of material, and after some due diligence and contacts, some inquiries, we've found homes for all the material. So we're slowly moving that material off-site. And bear with us, we've got trucks kind of going this way and that way. We're trying to distribute that traffic in a couple different directions, so we're not taking material right across front of City Hall. So lots going on there. In terms of material, the building is being, all the structures, we'll kind of go forward. The structures, again, are being demoed. Right now, the majority of them are retaining one big structure that's in the south end of the site. Again, that's the one we hope to use for civic opportunities, you know, weddings, rehearsals, farmers markets, and that type of thing. We previously called that the field house, and now it's just kind of the community building. It's a large structure. We talked a little about the 4th Avenue and the roundabout and the extension of Idaho Street. Those items, those projects were in and are in your urban renewal plan, in your Tier 1 projects. So they're lined out. There's estimated costs for those projects. And to be straightforward, A&A would like to seek reimbursement of those design and construction costs for those improvements. They're public improvements that benefit their project, that make it feasible, that make the development feasible. But also those improvements benefit the district as a whole. They benefit the city. Because at the end of the day, I think all of us who do urban renewal, we want this district to be successful. We want it to be redevelop. We want it to close. At the end of the day, when it closes, you have that new assessment, that new valuation that benefits holistically the city with tax benefits, construction jobs, and long-term jobs. Not the best slide, but it kind of tells a story. We're extending city sewer and water through the site, which benefits the site, but it's city water, but it also holistically benefits the surrounding area. You know, when you extend water through a site, it creates loops and networks and increases fire flow. The same thing with sewer. It benefits the adjoining properties as well. This is the last slide. Again, kind of an overview. That northeast corner of Idaho and 4th, just south of the fire station, we've got the bookstore lined up. We have another small grocer that's very serious that wants to go in there. Potential hotel sites in there on that northeast corner adjacent to the fire station. There's a little bit of traffic noise in there from the interstate, so you got to kind of keep that in mind. The green area is the Millworx. We're anxiously awaiting those permits, have those contractors lined up. Moving forward with design of Idaho and the roundabout, and then ultimately more phases to the west. So we think this is a pretty exciting project. It's the easterly bookend of the downtown district with the westerly bookend on Spokane Street. So pretty exciting stuff. The plans changed a little bit. I looked at my friend Diane. We met with Diane maybe 2.5 years ago when we were doing some envisioning. We picked her brains. So what's a good fit? And then we developed the plan. And then COVID came along. The real estate market shifted dramatically. We redesigned the plan to accommodate a new real estate market, and here we are today. So pretty exciting stuff. Brian, anything to add? I'm missing anything? Bill?
No, I think you covered it. I mean, I guess one thing to add is I think the road connectivity is critical throughout the whole entire project. So, this Idaho Street and the roundabout and making 4th Avenue improvements, making them wide with pathways and trees and pedestrian friendly is critical. Kind of like what Spokane Street is like, and also 4th right out here in front of City Hall. We really want to make that connection all the way in front of all the property we have on 4th Avenue, so people feel like it's really a place that they can call home, and it's actually a place that's really vibrant and exciting. So I think that's why we've really tried to make this a place where people can have some home ownership, so they feel like they are invested in this neighborhood. At the same time, providing commercial pieces such as the brewery or a restaurant or the grocery store, maybe even the hotel function like we've talked about, that really complement that, so you have a place where people feel like they can do a lot of different things you know, not just live there, but spend every, you know, day to day there, and even some workspaces in this area as well. So office, I think, is another key component that we'll just kind of see how these things continue to develop over time. That's why we've only really developed the first half of our project up to Idaho Street, from the east up to Idaho Street, and then we're really, as we start to get that up and running, we'll look at what the other piece west of Idaho Street should be. You know, really, does that want to be you know, additional office space, you know, live work type of spaces? Not really sure. So we really are looking at phasing how we approach those developments. But that connectivity and all the infrastructure that goes along with it is key to make it a successful overall project. So thank you for your consideration on this.
Does the commission have any questions? Q&A, happy to.
I do.
Okay.
Eric, go ahead.
Real quick, between the various types of condominiums and the apartments, how many residential units are envisioned?
So the first phase that you're looking at would be the townhomes, which are, you know, on the very east side of the colored portion. There's 61 townhomes that sit in that piece. And then those two apartment buildings are just to the west of that, up on 4th, that Brad was mentioning. There's 61 apartment units in there. And then as we begin to expand it and develop it even further, we envision maybe potential of, you know, 300 rooftops.
So it's basically starting at the northeast corner of that green shaded parcel and moving to the west and to the south as far as the development goes?
Yeah, so there's about 120 units right in there.
Okay.
They duplicate that to the west of Idaho, and then once Idaho gets built, we'll have, again, retail and residential on top of that. So end of the day, a couple hundred units. Retail, office, space.
I mean, we really are working with the city, you know, because we have a minimum density, since this is in the SMART code, SC5, we have 18 units per acre as a minimum that we have to provide. So that's really what's driving the densities that would be required. So.
And big kudos to John and Bob. They've been super helpful on the planning end of things, working on the site plan and the SMART code.
Did you have a question?
Thank you for the presentation. It was very helpful. As you noted, Brad, we have built this into our plan as the Tier 1 improvements. Question for Pete. We obviously will need an OPA, and do you see these, since they're basically set out in the plan as specific projects, to be project-specific, so that there'd be one for the extension or the improvements on 4th Street, there'd be one for the extension of Idaho, or would there be one OPA aggregating each of the areas that are relative to this particular development, which are set forth in the plan, both Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3? Because I think at the time we made it evident to the City Council, and they agreed, and the city, that the tiers were simply a planning part, and that we could move things around within the tier structure to accommodate
I think we can
development.
just do one OPA. I don't think we need to do the master and project-specific concept on this one.
Okay.
I
So
think we
so
can
that's
just-
something, that's an
one
administrative issue we
all-encompassing-
need to move forward with,
Right.
particularly as they start the street improvements.
Right, and the applicant or the proponent needs to complete the evaluation and questionnaire pursuant to
Sure.
policy 1, and that gets the ball rolling, and then we can move towards getting an OPA drafted and signed.
Okay, good.
The developer's going to need to come up with the money for the infrastructure prior to.
Yeah.
I guess my question would be with the infrastructure that initially goes in that would be subject to reimbursement from urban renewal. Is there funding sources available to make that happen until increment starts coming in to be able to reimburse with?
Yeah, we've talked that through. We're aware that the district is in its infancy. There's probably not a whole lot of increment for reimbursement. So kind of what happens, looking at the lender, I mean, A&A goes out and borrows money to do the project. They take a calculated risk that, you know, they're going to get, this is going to be a successful project, and they're going to get reimbursed, and cross our fingers and pray to God that happens. Development's a tough business. It really is. You know, sometimes we think it's not, but it's.
And as you're aware, we have provisions to offset some of their financing costs. We have provisions to offset some of their planning and architectural costs built into our policies, which would be built into the OPA.
Yeah, percentage increments.
Sure.
And they're aware these are based on actual construction costs and invoices, real costs. You got to
Yes.
get it done and make this thing successful and hopefully get reimbursed.
I want to reiterate what Commissioner Crosby said about the presentation, the development you've got going here and the work that's been put into that. I think the people in Post Falls will not believe it's really happening when it starts happening, and I know it is starting now, but it's going to be a huge, huge plus for our community. The work you've done on it, you've done your homework, still are doing your homework every day, and we appreciate that very much, and keeping us informed as you go along best you can, and we'll do what we can to support that. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Okay, the second part, you say something? Okay, second part of our unfinished business is a presentation to us by Rob Brewster on the landing site and how that's coming together. Who is going to be the spokesperson, the presenter?
Yes.
All of you?
Rob Brewster is here this morning to make that presentation. Or one of his consultants. He is in the audience, so.
Welcome.
Morning. I'm Summer Oman with Miller Stauffer Architects. I've been working with Rob on this project along with Monty Miller. So let me just I've got some printouts to look at too because I've got a lot of information for you and I don't want to have to flip back and forth too much. As far as getting the digital. City stuff. No, we didn't have it. Wait, might be able to help us.
So we only have a USB like right here. All of our CDs have no.
Okay, well, I brought the disc thinking that then I could leave it with you guys. So just send these guys out to them. Old school on this. I've got a digital copy for you if you want to keep it, but I just put it on a disc thinking I could leave it with you. Think about the fact that
Thank you.
No one uses discs anymore. Kind of like the floppies.
Thank you. Tracks and all that stuff. Changing constantly.
Thank you.
This is exciting.
And I'll just hand that over here. Let's make it easy for you. Thank you.
I can hand them out.
Thanks.
It's pretty.
I apologize, I don't have anything for everyone to look at then up on the big screen. But basically what we're looking at is off of Spokane Street between 3rd and what currently is McReynolds Drive. And just for clarification, we've been looking at the option of renaming McReynolds Drive south of 3rd Avenue.
We're going to try to email it so we can put it on the projector.
Okay.
Where does Jackson find it?
In the PDF there's a UA documents.
Okay,
Under the PDF for the file.
Water Tower.
Mhm. Under Water Tower PDF, there's a UA documents folder that's got all the PDFs in it. we'll keep plugging along. We'll see if we can get it up, but basically, just so there's not confusion, because I'll probably say this, but we were currently entertaining the notion of renaming McReynolds south of 3rd to Tower Vista Drive. So if you hear that, that's what that is referencing. This project is a mixed-use development containing its 2 buildings. The larger building along Spokane Street, it's broken up by a breezeway, but we're looking at ground floor retail spaces there. We're talking restaurants, cafe shops. We're talking possibly some outdoor equipment rentals, a fitness facility, things of that nature are the kind of things they're looking at. And then the building B, which sits back on that McReynolds Tower Vista southwest corner, would be all apartments. So the ground floor of each, they're each 4 stories. The building B off of McReynolds has a parking garage beneath to help with parking on the site. And then 4 floors of apartments above the garage. And then building A is the retail commercial spaces with 3 floors of apartments above that. So we're talking 38 apartments in B and 69 in A. There are some improvements that we've come before you guys today to talk about that we think would really help make this work and add to the downtown urban renewal that we're trying to create for Post Falls. So I've broken up on this main cover page. We've kind of highlighted the different areas that we're looking at, and then they correlate with these summary breakdowns that we have here. So that's why I was saying I've got handouts because we'll kind of be going back and forth a little bit. So Spokane Street I have highlighted in blue. Currently, there's quite a bit of development that's been done along there, improvements that have been made over the last couple of years, but we really see the benefit in adding some on-street parking there, the more that we've looked at the surrounding areas. And so we are looking at 9 spots that we're wanting to add on that side of the street, just to kind of mimic what's happening on the east side that's already there. And the reasoning behind this is that we feel it makes Spokane Street retail spaces more accessible to vehicular traffic. It creates a buffer between the moving traffic and pedestrians that are using those outdoor spaces along the retail level. It enhances that downtown feel, and then it also aligns with the city code recommendations for vertical mixed-use performance standards, which states that to diminish the visual impact of parking areas and to enhance pedestrian experience, angled, perpendicular, or parallel parking within the public rights-of-way adjacent to mixed-use buildings is encouraged. So we feel that this would really be a beneficial change to Spokane Street and really add to the project as well as the whole downtown district.
Question for you. Would this be within the existing roadway right-of-way, or would this be inserted into the property that
This would be
the developer would own?
This would be, there is enough space currently that we would still be able to have sidewalk within the public right-of-way that is about 8 feet, which you can kind of see that's the property line along where the edge of that blue is. Right now, there's currently a landscape buffer, which I don't know, oh, they're doing stuff. It's magic. Things are happening over here. I want to take control. I don't know who's got it. Okay. Okay, so let's get this guy. Let's see. So currently, the area that is from where we're, the property line, the right-of-way currently exists what's happening down here at the south end. There is a planting strip, and then there's a large sidewalk that comes to within about 5 feet of where the property line is, and then planting beyond that. And so these, where we're showing these street trees, are existing street trees, or existing trees that are there that we would like to save if at all possible. They're the larger trees that have been on the site. And we would be removing the planting strip and basically mimicking what's happening on the east side, which is the trees in tree grates along the sidewalk, right along the parking spaces. So all of this happens within the right-of-way, and we still have plenty of space to create the outdoor environments for the retail spaces to give you that downtown feel and vibrancy and life that we want to see. But that is a good question. But yeah, so we would be looking at basically demoing the curb and planting strip along that, and sidewalk that's currently existing along Spokane Street, and pushing that all back the 9 feet to create those parallel parking spaces. And then putting the tree grates in at the existing trees where we can save them, and putting new street trees in where that's not possible. And then revising, the big one is revising the irrigation that's already along there, along that parking strip.
The irony of that is that we paid for the improvements to Spokane Street about 8 years ago. And at the time, we encouraged the city to put on street parking, and they opposed it. Have you discussed this plan with the city?
We have, and they have been in favor of it. Yeah, we
So-
presented this to them, and they said, we think that this is a good idea. And
So we're going to tear out the original improvements and put in parking. Wonderful, thank you.
Okay.
Government at its best.
yeah, like, really. Yeah, so that's what we've been presented with, and we've talked to them about it, and they've given us the thumbs up to move forward with it. But we do think this is all work that's happening in the right-of-way, and we think it benefits, like I said, the downtown district. So we have some cost breakdowns on what this is looking like that are included in there that I won't go into detail on, but you have all that information. And these are all rough prices that we've just gotten talking to contractors, just to get some ballpark numbers, because we're still in the process of fine-tuning the design, and nothing's gone out to bid yet at this point. So it's all flexing, and as we know, the market's changing every day. So the next one that we have is the Tower Vista Drive Road Extension, or McReynolds Drive Road Extension. Currently, is shown here in this red highlighted area, the existing infrastructure and roadway improvement stops right here at the bottom of this hatched area. It doesn't punch all the way through up to that roundabout. There's been, it's been planned for that to go through for some time. With us being the first project really being developed along there, it's put the onus possibly on us to make that improvement, which is it's a big deal to extend that whole road out, put all the sidewalks in, the landscaping, the street trees, the irrigation, the crosswalk that would have to happen up there at the roundabout. So we feel it's important for our site, for the circulation, connectivity to the neighboring sites as things develop to the west and to the south. But it is a big undertaking. So again, we've got that kind of broken down. Again, there'd be grading and curbs and sidewalks and paving and street trees and irrigation and extending and relocating utilities, street lighting that would need to be added along there, as well as, like I said, the crosswalk. You'll see one of the, let's see, let's start with the existing. When this was plotted, the intention was that we would have this road that would go through, and so a sewer water main was put through with an easement along that. And since we've actually gotten the lot lines plotted, you can see that it doesn't quite end up following how the road curves. It was a little sharp for what we were thinking would be the best vehicular access along that way. So the property line, as it was plotted now, this sits within the property line with that 10-foot easement within the property at certain areas. And you can see in this corner down here that our easement kind of sits under what we would like to, where a corner of the building would be. So part of this also, and we've been talking to the city about this, is relocating that water line so that it actually follows the new curb along McReynolds as we develop it. And that would put the easement, there's pretty much entirely outside of the property line and in the right-of-way as it should be, and doesn't then inhibit development in that corner of their property. So there's obviously some costs that will be involved with that, with getting the new line dug in and aligned. There's one catch basin that would need to be shifted to make that happen as well. But, you know, we'll be digging through there, getting the road in, and it's really the time to do it as well. We're doing that road improvement. So we've got that lumped into this improvement as well. So we don't have overall costs on what the water sewer or the sewer water main relocation would be. We haven't gotten that far down the road with exactly what would need to happen and figured that all out yet. But we do have a lot of the other construction costs kind of outlined here to give you a rough idea of what we're looking at in order to extend that road up to the roundabout. The third improvement is the south end of McReynolds or Tower Vista. What we've kind of hatched along this bottom edge here, there's not currently sidewalks on this side of the street. So we think that that's vital for our community that we're creating here for these apartments. It's vital for the retail that's along there, connecting to the future improvements that are happening to the west in public spaces. So there's some work that would need to be done in that right-of-way for that to happen, which includes having to move. There's some electrical transformers that would have to shift. There's irrigation that would have to shift. Street trees would need to be taken out with the sidewalk, put it in the street trees, then whether they can be saved and reused or new street trees planted along that sidewalk then. And so it would basically mimic what has been developed on the south side of McReynolds Tower Vista Drive, which has the curb, the sidewalk, and then a planting. So there'd be a planting separation then between the sidewalk and our buildings and our property line. So there's some new irrigation or revisions to the irrigation that would have to happen, new sidewalks, some grading, as well as like the relocation of some of those existing electrical transformers and street lights and hydrants, things that might have to shift a little bit. But we think that creating that sidewalk all the way around really adds, again, not only to our development, but to the whole downtown atmosphere and community that you're trying to create. So again, we have the prices broken down for that. The last two are our 3rd Street access, which we've been working with the city on getting a right-in, right-out access point at the north end of the property. And the reasoning behind this is to have that straight shot. Let's see if I can't zoom out on this a little so we can see it all. Is to have a straight shot through the property. This increases circulation for deliveries that are made for the retail spaces, gets them off of the major roads, moving vans for people moving in and out, trash collection, emergency access, that with the site is fairly level with the exception of this western edge, which drops off, which is why we show a parking garage coming in off that side to access below that building. So trying to connect on that side was difficult with that grade happening. There's no connections along Spokane. We don't want any drives along there. So really the logical place in order to have a second access point was 3rd Street. So there's some right-of-way work again that we would be doing. We'd be doing as minimal amount as we possibly can, but we would be, basically there's 3 on-street parking spots along here. So this 3rd one would get taken out. We'd be adding some landscape back in these areas at the edges of where we're showing the driveway, and laying out the curb cut for that and putting in a sidewalk crossing across there. So there'd be a little bit of vegetation and irrigation that would need to get reworked. There's some storm drains that are the basins that are probably the biggest hurdle right there that would need to get relocated. And again, we think that it helps function, it helps access for retail along that side, since the majority of all of our parking is on the interior of the lot, that having a second entrance in and out was important, but it does require some more extensive rework of some utilities up against that north end.
Question, you indicated that there'd be a parking facility underneath the Building B, apartment
Correct.
building. What kind of parking ratio would that be per unit?
1.
One per unit?
Yes.
So the balance of the parking in the interior is primarily to service the apartments, not the retail?
It is a combination. We have, because we have that day-night with the retail spaces and the people who are living there and leaving and going to work, that they have a factor that you put in, I think it's like 1.2 or something, so for shared parking. But we are over the required parking by a few spots at this time, not including what we're proposing along Spokane Street, but just on-street parking. So what's in the interior of the lot would be a mix for both apartments and the retail spaces, which is why we think having that access at the north end, so that it's obvious that you come in and park in order to reach these retail spaces, in addition to having the parking along Spokane Street, so that it is accessible, people realize it's accessible, there's places to park, so that you can go to the restaurant, you can go to the coffee shop, you can go to the gym, you can go to whatever ends up going into those retail spaces, and that people aren't fighting to try and find parking for that. So there would be a certain number of parking that would get reserved for apartments, but there's that would be in that garage, and then everything else would be a combination on the ground level in the interior there of parking for both.
I'm just thinking primarily about weekends, because on weekends, obviously, you're going to, if you don't have designated retail parking or restricted retail parking, you're going to really penalize your retail tenants because apartment dwellers are going to utilize those properties, those parking spaces.
Well, like I said, we've got more than above and beyond what the city requires for the uses for the two different, for the apartments, the residential and the commercial use. There would be per rental agreements or whatnot, how many spaces people are allotted. If they want extra spaces, if it's available, then they may be able to purchase an additional space, something along those lines. But there will be, between the parking, which, like I said, we're trying to keep the street parking that we have on 3rd Street. We're trying to add some on Spokane Street, just so that we are going above and beyond and trying to provide for these retail spaces. We want them to be places that people come to, a destination. This is where you want to go and spend your afternoon shopping and eating and dining and going down to the river and the park. And we understand that this is a place that people want to. Sure.
I'm really coming, though, from an experience of some of the few commercial buildings that have been built on Spokane Street have had very restricted parking available. So that's created within the neighborhood a serious parking issue. And I don't want this particular building, which I think is a great building, and I love the fact that you're incorporating the retail on the first floor and the residences above, but I don't want this to create a further problem with the single-family neighborhood that's just across the street, because obviously if you've got each of the apartments having 2 spaces, and on weekends all those cars are parked, you're really going to eliminate the opportunity for a retail parking facility to accommodate the folks that are coming down to patronize the retail tenants. Bob, you want to comment on that?
Bob Seal, Community Development Director. Yeah, I just kind of wanted to comment on, we're at the beginning stages of the redevelopment of the downtown, and yes, there's always growing pains, there's parking issues, things like that. Community Development is currently working on the design and creation of a parking lot actually just to the south of this site.
Which is one of the things in our plan to.
It is, and we happen to have city funding currently available for this, and it will provide somewhere around 40 parking spaces within that parking lot. And again, within the renewal plan for the downtown district is the continuation of creation of on-street parking throughout the neighborhoods, which that on-street parking is intended to lend parking spaces for people to park and walk to the shopping district, to walk that block to go to the restaurant cafes that are here. Not every single site is developed to hold every single car or person that's going to go to that specific site, because there is expectation that somebody's going to go to this site to visit one or more of those businesses and maybe even walk across the street to another business. When you start to put them all together, that's when it starts to come to fruition. So, we are watching as the urology building across the street, and additionally is working on developing their plans. They will have parking spaces. Again, I think that they are aiming slightly above their minimum requirements, just as they're aiming slightly above the minimum requirements. So we're trying to follow, the current zoning codes and the city's expectations and trying to balance that. Yes, there's always growing pains, but we do see that as it gets built out, and not even at 100%, as we reach, 20%, 30% of build out, we'll see that it's working, where people are willing to park within neighborhoods, because it's not just about, it's not just single family homes within the neighborhoods anymore. It's starting to redevelop.
I understand, sure. Right. I was just,
Yeah, I just wanted
reflecting
to kind of
on the brewery problem.
I know.
Is the plan, the city parking facility, is that planned on this side of Spokane Street?
Correct.
So
It's on the, if you scroll down, it's essentially right here where it says Building A. So it's on that south side of Second, or McReynolds, or
Okay,
whatever this
super.
is. Tower.
Because
Whatever it ends up being.
pedestrians,
Yeah.
by definition, don't like to walk very far, unfortunately.
Well, again, but, a lot of times you will find that, they will be willing to walk a block, 100 yards.
Sure.
If they don't want to, they won't go down there. And then in the end, you will get, I guess when you talk to economic development directors across the country, their big thing is, oh, you have a parking problem? That's a good thing, because that means it's working. That means you have people that want to go there. We're working on creating that on-street parking that will be throughout the neighborhood, which is not going to be designated for the house or the apartment complex that's directly adjacent to it. It's going to be designated for the public use, as you would find in most small downtowns.
That's helpful. Thank you very much. I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I was
That's all
just
right, no.
reflecting
It's
on,
good to think through everything, and like he said, there's businesses that'll be going in, like the urologist, that won't be open on weekends, and will have a parking available for farmers markets and stuff like that too. So, it's all things that we're looking at the big picture as this is getting developed too, and what we see happening all around, and wanting to make those connectivities and wanting to have a really lively place where people want to be, and lots of things to come and see and do. And I know that with the public improvements along the river and the amphitheater type spaces that they're looking at, it's going to be a really great spot. So we want to make sure it works as best we can too, and we're just trying to follow guidelines with providing the parking that's required, but shielding it from the streets, putting the public facade, making that really pedestrian friendly. And
thank you.
yes.
So I like the idea of the underground parking for Building B. What about similar thing for the residential underground parking for Building A?
We considered it, but at this point, it's a much bigger cost. Like I said, at this point, because of the site sloping down so much along that southwest corner, it really lends itself to being able to just kind of dig that out a little bit more to get that parking pad in there. There would be massive excavation and costs that would have to happen if we were to put underground parking under the whole site, or even under the other side of the building, because it's all pretty much at grade. It's all along that street, existing sidewalk grade, and it's pretty level. We're pretty fortunate that there's not a lot of fall that happens along Spokane Street that requires us to do anything foundation-wise with stepping foundations too much or anything. So it's you know, I know that Rob and Steve had mentioned it before, like, you know, is that something that if we provide it, will the city pay for it? Because, you know, is that something that would be worthwhile looking into? Because they understand too the concerns for parking for a downtown and wanting to make it accessible for many people to come to. But I think the price tag on that is so high that at this point it's not something that we've gone down that road looking at. I mean, if that's something where it's decided that that's the kind of money that this project can generate to facilitate having a more public parking garage that's there.
I was thinking of it more in terms of just for, you know, exclusive for the residents of the upper floor apartments, you know, and then leave the outdoor parking is, you know, would lend itself more towards primarily the retail traffic and the weekend traffic and things of that nature.
It's a huge cost, and it puts us way over the required parking. It doubles the parking that we'd be required to have on the site. And so it's something, like I said, we've gone down the road, we've thought about it, but the site just doesn't lend itself as well to having a parking garage, another entrance in and out somewhere on that end because of the grade that's there and the existing streets that we can't have. We don't have, the only access point we have is off of McReynolds at this point. So, and the last thing I just wanted to touch on was that we have along in kind of the purple of the corners on Spokane Street, we've got some opportunities for public plaza displays. We think these would be great locations for some public art, you know, benches, water features, something to really, you know, add to the pedestrian aesthetics, experience, downtown feel, and that's, you know, would be partially on the right-of-way, partially on their property that they could develop, whether it's enhanced planting and vegetation there, but something to kind of soften. And as you're coming down the corridor and you see all these retail spaces, creating that outdoor space that makes people want to spend time out there. And so it's just an open question at this point and something to get thoughts going on what could happen there, if there's local artists that would be interested in working with the urban redevelopment on creating some sort of feature or something that could happen in those two spaces. So we don't have anything costs or anything broken down for that at this point. It's just something to think on at this point and an opportunity that's there before we get too far down the road and designing what's happening in those. We're showing it as planters at this point, but you know, certainly some benches or art or water features or, you know, something could really be enhanced there as you come down and into that downtown area and see. Yep.
Just have a comment in follow-up to what Eric was saying, having to do with the parking. I really think it would make good sense to have the parking underground for the residents only, and then let the other parking, the open parking, be for the retail and so on. That would also create an opportunity for parking for people who wanted to just come down and walk around the little park and enjoy that piece. And what I was wondering is if there is some community grant money available through the state or something to help with that cost, the increased cost you're talking about, to make that feasible, because I can tell you, just look at some of our neighboring communities and how much additional parking they had to put in after the years when the town was developing and growing, and all of a sudden the people weren't coming there because it was too hard or no parking available, and it frustrated them. And you don't want that to happen, you know, in a facilities like this, because you've really got a lot of nice stuff there, and you know, parking is oftentimes an afterthought. And anyway, I'd encourage you to revisit that in some way to to make something like that happen, just to give the people that are living there are gonna wanna know that they've got a parking space. And the underground, they don't wanna have to fight the retail people to get in and out, especially as on a weekend.
Right. Right now, the entire site, the parking for residential is 1.5 per unit. Most of the units, over half of the units there are all one-bedroom studio units. So the intention is that they would only have one car. There's the occasion that there would be 2 cars, and like we said, that'd be, they'd be permitted one spot, and if they have a second car, they'd have to look at what the parking's looking like and if they can provide that for them on our site or not. So it is, like I said, we're overparked right now per city code requirements. Like I said, again, it's a discussion that we've kind of had, and they've brought it up as far as what that would entail, and we've looked into it a little bit, and just, it's mostly the access into that, how you would access parking under that building. There would basically be a very large parking garage with the only access really looking at that place where we've got it off of the McReynolds right now, and that one way in and one way out of a very large garage, which would create a bit of traffic through there. So it's something we've looked at, and we'll continue to, we can talk about it some more, and I know that they've talked about if the money's there, then that's something that they would entertain doing, but from a development standpoint, in order to make the project feasible for them, they can't afford to make those kind of improvements without the assistance. Yeah.
In the initial discussions that we had with the city regarding this project, I understood there was a problem with no utility service for electrical gas in the site. I didn't see that in this presentation.
Currently, we're working with a Vista right now.
Okay.
And so we don't have all the information and numbers at this time. They're working with our electrical engineer. We're trying to get the loads and everything to them. But that is something as well, that trying to get power and gas to the site, because we are looking at gas water heaters. And obviously there's some serious power needs that are going to be required as well. But it's in the works right now. The process has started. That ball is rolling. But it is utility infrastructure we're needing to bring in. We just don't know how much of an undertaking that's going to be until we get more direction from a Vista.
Thank you.
I had a question.
Yes.
Do you envision the retail spaces, I see that there's a breezeway there, but do you envision the retail spaces having a storefront in the front, street facing, and in the back, kind of courtyard facing?
That's the intention right now, is that so that people can, since most of the parking is on that back side, that they would be able to have an access, but the main storefront displays would mostly be along Spokane Street with outdoor seating and areas like that. So we have a couple renderings we're still working through and fine-tuning and selecting materials, but just to kind of give an idea of what we're looking at here. Talking about some overhead doors that would open up onto these plaza spaces. This is looking at the south end of the building. So we've just got most of the actual frontage would be along Spokane. This is looking up from Spokane Street. And then on this backside, it's covered parking that pulls underneath the second floor of the building, overhangs that first row of parking on both Building A and Building B. And what's not shown in this rendering is we have carports that are actually going in above the center parking strips as well, just to help with stormwater management, shade, the heat island, all that. So the interior of it will still have an ability to access those retail spaces, and that's why we have that breezeway for people to walk back and forth from not only within our site, but to across the street, to if they're over there, park over there, or they're parked here and have grabbed a coffee and now they're gonna go across the street to walk around and walk down to one of the other developments. We wanted that pedestrian ease and access because it is such a long block. And I know that that was something that was in the SMART code as far as anything over 300 feet or 200 feet, they really encouraged having that breezeway through there. So those spaces will be double-sided. It's intended that there would be one commercial space that would take up both fronts with access from both sides. Any other questions at this point?
Any other questions? No? Thank you.
Okay, thank
the
you for your time.
presentation. Bob?
Just had a quick update on the Vista. So staff met with a Vista last week or the week before to discuss the landing site, and it was determined that there is a path forward from the southern end of the site going northward so that they could get power to this site as well as the urology site without having to rely on the bulk of the remainder of the site that's on the north side. Liberty is still working on having easements put in place along the roadways with, trying to work with the Vista on that to get easements put in along the rest of the roadway as it continues north. So
So the problem affects the entire landing site?
So the entire landing
Not just
site-
these two parcels?
Correct. So yeah, the entire landing site lacks real backbone of infrastructure for electric and gas. What needs to be put in place is the easements on the northern bulk of the property, and then still needs to be addressed for these southern two properties. But it sounds like there's a good path forward with a Vista as to how to get that in place. So,
Thank
but
you.
at least that we don't have to rely on it all coming from the north side.
Thank you. Thank you. Just a question for Mr. Brewster or his team. What are you looking for from Urban Renewal?
Hi, my name is Monty Miller with Miller Stoffer. Speaking of numbers, this project would probably value somewhere between 50 million and 60 million after completion. The increment that we would be looking at would be roughly $600,000 to $1 million in all the improvements that we've been discussing. So something like that could generate a payback within a year in tax revenue. So a project like this that's got such high value with the condominiums, the retail space, the residential, would have a pretty short-term return on an increment. So that's kind of what we're thinking, somewhere in the 600 to $1 million range in
Sure.
public improvements.
Okay, I mean, obviously, you've given us some numbers that add up to about 400,000. We'd need to evaluate the request, since
Right.
it has to fit into the plan, which we've, obviously put together. We can't change the plan, we can't add specific projects, but we always put in some general language, which would help us provide public improvements that enhance the value within the planned district. So, as you move forward on this, please, work directly with our urban renewal director and our council, who will, give you an idea of what's in the plan now and what of the needs that you have we could accommodate by agreeing to reimburse you as the tax increment is coming into the district.
You bet.
Any other comments or questions you want to make, Pete? No?
Like I made for the previous speaker, this proponent will also have to complete the evaluation and questionnaire that's required by Policy 1 to get the ball rolling. That's kind of the starting point.
Yeah, what we do is we have what we call what is it, OPA, what does it stand for? I forget.
Owner participation
Owner
agreement.
participation agreement. So basically, it's an agreement between Urban Renewal and the developer as to the improvements that'll be made, the public benefit of those improvements, and then and the fact that the developer puts forward the funding for those improvements once they're completed and accepted by the city and dedicated to the city, then the Urban Renewal, to the extent that tax increment is created, provides the reimbursement for that. So,
Got it.
thank you.
Thank you.
Moving right along, new business, order of approval for the Expo property.
Thank you. Welsh Comer has completed their review of the final submittal from J.R. Watson in the Expo District. It included additional work on Creative Way, Expo Parkway, and Jacqueline Road, as well as some financing costs. And the total amount that they submitted was $234,175, and the amount that qualifies for reimbursement is $228,391.18, and that is listed in the order of approval that is before you for approval this morning. Matt Gillis is here if we have any questions regarding that review and submittal.
Any questions from the commission? Great job, Matt. Can I get a motion to authorize the executive director to move forward with this reimbursement?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Coles, seconded by Commissioner Clemenson. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
You got left out of the deal.
Okay, staff report and updates.
I don't have anything else to update you on. Joe and I have been working on all of the projects and filling him in, and he's doing a fantastic job. So it's exciting to be able to share my knowledge with him, and things just keep coming up, and we go into new things that come up as they do. So I think the presentations that were here before us today are fantastic. It's really exciting, and I look forward to seeing all that stuff happen. So, and Matt Gillis and Jack at Welsh Comer, they do a fantastic job for the commission in their reviews and stuff. And so I just want to thank Matt for what he does.
Didn't want to let you get away before we complimented you. Thank you, Matt.
And that's all I have. I don't know if Joe has anything to say.
I just want to thank the commission for the honor to serve as executive director with the Urban Renewal Agency. Working with Diane has been fabulous. There's been a few comments of, drinking out of the fire hose, so to speak, but she's done a fabulous job of metering things and bringing me along with the different facets of the position. It's been an amazing first 3 weeks. I'm really looking forward to the rest of the time. So it's an exciting opportunity for me, and thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner comments? Any comments? The chairman had to leave. On his behalf, I'd like to see us, Diane, before the end of the year and before you retire. You can't do that. I'm 78. I haven't retired yet. So before
retired,
you
just don't realize it yet.
I know I am. Yeah, absolutely. Before you leave, I'd like to plan a strategic planning session. I don't think we've had one of those in several years, and I think it would be useful to update update the commission on the status of each of the plans, look forward and see if there are other areas of the city where we could be useful in assisting the city in public improvements, and just, reinvigorating us in terms of looking forward and planning. And maybe you and Joe can interact with the city and come up with a good date that maybe some of the city development folks could participate also and give us their thoughts and ideas.
Okay.
Any objection to that? Okay, all right. And with that, I'd listen to a movement.
So moved.
So moved to adjourn. Second? Second, Commissioner Coles. All those in favor, and aye, we're adjourned. Thank you.
I wanted you to.